So I'd like to resume this regular council meeting of Monday, June 25th. We are at the hearing portion of our meeting, and we'll have 2 hearings and then a statutory public hearing. And so I will start with my first opening statement for the hearings. So I'd like to open up hearings for development permit 418 and development permit 419. Following the reading of the motion by the CAO, I will request the development and planning officer to explain the developments. Then I will ask for 3 times for submissions from the gallery, giving opportunity for the applicant and the public to speak. And council will have an opportunity to ask questions. Once this is complete, I will close the hearing and council will vote on the motion. Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 20.1 is Development Permit 418, and this is for the property at 250 Fifth Avenue Southwest. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Harrison, seconded by Councillor Flynn, that DP 418 be authorized for issuance for Lot 1, Plan KAP 52591, in accordance with the drawings attached to the staff report dated June 13, 2018, and that the following variances to zoning bylaw 2303 be approved. Number 1, increase the maximum height of a principal building from 15 to 15.8 meters for buildings 1, 2, and 3. And number 2, decrease the minimum drive aisle width for 2-way traffic from 7.3 to 6 meters as shown in Appendix 5. And further, that issuance be withheld subject to the following: receipt of a letter of credit for landscaping and registration of a 6-meter wide statutory right-of-way along the southern parcel boundary for the city's sanitary sewer main.
Development Services.
Thanks, Your Worship. The proposed 3 multifamily residential buildings consisting of 97 units triggers the requirement for a residential development permit. This application requests the 2 variances as described, 1 for height and 1 for the access route width for a approximately 12-meter section of the access route as shown on the screen above. This proposal is aligned with the official community plan's high-density residential land use designation, and the present R5 zoning permits the proposed use. The proposal has been reviewed and supported by the city's design review panel, and it's the opinion of staff that the proposed development meets the guidelines of the OCP. The application, including the variances, is supported by staff.
Okay, thank you. So I will be calling 3 times for submissions, starting with the applicant. Would the applicant like to speak?
I think I was said enough, but I'll definitely want to ask questions.
Okay, thank you. Calling a 2nd time for submissions. Did anyone want to speak to this? Please come forward and let us know what your views are. So calling for a 3rd time for submissions. This is your chance to come forward and talk. Okay. We have some written submissions. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, thank you, Worship. We have 2 written submissions, one from Sheila Amy, one from Keith Amy, and I think all of council was distributed with those.
They had a couple questions about height variances and parking. So hearing no one coming forward with submissions, do we have any questions for staff? Okay. Councillor Jameson?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just referring to the letter that Councillor Harrison referred to. So concern number 3, and just maybe a question for, I guess,
For staff?
Staff, really. You have that in front of you, do you, Mr. Larson?
I do.
So 97-unit multifamily residential development. So this is from the Amy's. And looking at the plan, they probably show only 36 carport parking stalls. And then 22 parking bays and 2 bays for disabled parking. Now, first blush, that would suggest that there's not enough. Or that's what they're suggesting. So could you elaborate on that?
Certainly. I believe that the letter of concern is referring to the plan that's on the screen above. I believe they've missed one parking space. There is 61 spaces in the image provided. This image does not show the below-grade parking spaces, of which there are, I believe, 66.
Okay.
So that wasn't included in the total. If the individual is just looking at the above image, it may have been difficult to note the underground parking.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Chris. That's an important point because the letter does, again, first blush says, whoa, that's not enough. But of course, there is adequate parking because it'll be the underground. So, and the other comment, I just wanted to make sure that it's on the picture up there. It's just the variance is that one small section of road there. That's the other road leading out to, that's third. That's all of, there's no variance required on that. It's all of standard width, correct?
Through your worship, that's correct. It's just the small section there. And just to clarify, it's 61 below-grade parking spaces. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, I mean, the letter point 2 addresses the concerns about safety for decreasing the width in that small section to basically 20 feet. 20 feet is, to me, it's not an issue. I think 2 vehicles can safely pass at 20 feet quite easily. So staff doesn't have concerns, and I therefore don't have concerns on that item as well.
So if there are no further questions, then I'll close the public hearing and we'll go to comments and a vote. So seeing no further questions, I declare this public hearing closed. So do we have any comments? Councillor Harrison?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to staff and the developer for working together to put together what I think is exactly what we're looking for in the city. Some underground parking, higher density housing, downtown. The location is terrific. I agree with my colleagues that the variances are quite small. Fire department had no concerns about the variance to the drive aisle width. As Councillor Jameson has pointed out, there's 122 parking stalls because some of them are underground. The height variance, which we didn't talk about, is small in height, and it's also only really aesthetic on small parts of the roof line, which we saw at planning. So I don't think that'll be a concern either. So I will vote in favor of the development permit with the variances.
Thank you. Councillor Jameson?
Thanks, Your Worship, and really similar comments. And the high density is what we need in this part of town. Hopefully some families. Next step will be to convince the school district we need a downtown elementary school, but that's another conversation. Close to bus stops, restaurants, a couple malls, Blackburn Park. It's a great place for a building like this. It's all it's been doing for a long time is harvesting weeds, so I will certainly support this.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, not much more to add. I will vote in favor. I would only say that I'm not sure if there's any ability for us to phase in the landscaping deposit, because as I understand it, they have to put 125% of the cost of landscaping for the whole project, and the project is going to be phased. And I would prefer to see us only ask for the first phase, but that's not really part of the motion. That's just my comments in general to make it easier and more likely that the next phases move ahead. And I think they should only have to pay the 125% for the phase as they come on the market or as they develop them. So, but I'm very much in favor of this for all the reasons mentioned.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace-Richmond?
Thank you, Your Worship. I too will vote in support. And while it'll take some time to build out all 3 phases, this is a very significant increase to the housing supply in the particular category that we need to increase the supply. So quite happy to support it, and wishing the developer the very best of luck.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything further from council? Okay, hearing none. I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Administrator?
Your worship, the next item is development permit 419 for the property at 481 Harborfront Drive Northeast. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Wallace Richmond, seconded by Councillor Eliason, that DP 419 be authorized for issuance for Lot D, Plan KAP 62328 in accordance with the drawings attached to the staff report dated June 12, 2018, and that issuance be withheld subject to the following: registration of a Section 219 covenant ensuring linkage of the subject parcel and 650 Marine Park Drive for the purpose of meeting the off-street parking requirements, registration of a covenant on title to acknowledge the restrictions of the riparian areas regulation, receipt of a letter of credit for landscaping, and written confirmation from a qualified environmental professional that the construction and riparian planting will be monitored by a QEP for compliance with the regulation.
Okay. Again, I will be calling 3 times for submissions, and I will begin with the developers. Would they like to have, do they have anything to say? If you'd like to come forward. Oh, I'm sorry, I should give our development services a chance first. Yeah, sorry, I'm a little anxious, kind of ready to go. You're okay? Okay. All right.
Okay, Mark Lamberton. I'm at 2751 25th Avenue Northeast. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors and staff. I'm the architectural consultant for the project. So we've had a chance to talk about this before, so I won't repeat myself too much, but as I had stated previously, the development of this project started with a feasibility study dating back almost a year, where we looked at various options that were that would meet the expectations of the ownership group. And throughout that process, we sort of arrived at this shape of building, and with this many of floors, with this particular composition of uses, including the 3 stories of commercial, which is office use, and the top floor of residential. Once we kind of arrived at that, the next sort of issue that we had to tackle was parking. And as we can appreciate on this particular site, underground parking wasn't going to be an option. So we looked at trying to maximize that on site, but quickly realized that we weren't going to be able to achieve that. And that's when the owner started exploring options and purchased the property across the street that had just been mentioned. So that will be formally linked as part of the project, and will be able to provide all of the required parking, given the amount of commercial use, which really was the driver of that. So there may be some questions about that, but I know there's some details that will be worked out throughout the development process, but we'll be handling all those as they come up. As for the site plan and the building elevations there, you can see that's a fairly modern design, but one with a composition of durable quality materials that we're looking to introduce. And at 4 stories, it's still well under the maximum height. So we're sort of conscious of that. We do have a flat roof, and there will be an elevator with probably a bit of mechanical equipment on the roof. But that's there may be some questions about that I can answer as well, Rickert. But I think the landscape plan, I don't know if you have that up there. Of course, being near the waterfront, there was you can see there. There was an existing riparian area report on title for this property, which was factored into the landscape design. So it respects all of those requirements, and we'll be following up with environmental oversight on landscape design. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything I need to add. So if there's any questions.
Development services, can you just go through the other pictures as well that we have up there?
Sure.
Was there one that showed the building in comparison to where the building's behind, kind of where they are in comparison? Across the street?
Your Worship, I know that the designer did provide the heights, the proposed heights in relation to the adjacent buildings. I don't have that illustration handy here, but I do have the heights. The proposed height of this building is 15.8 meters. The CSRD building, which is visible in the top image, is slightly lower. That blue screen is not intentional. The CSRD height is 11.5 meters. 19 meters is the permitted height in the C6 zone. For comparison, on the other side of the CSRD building is Lakeshore Manor, and its height is 16.5 meters. So at 15.8, this building will be slightly lower than Lakeshore Manor, slightly taller than the CSRD building, but well within the maximum 19 meters permitted by zoning. And there's the image as requested.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you. So calling for a second time for submissions. Did someone wish to speak to this? If you do, please come forward to the microphone. Calling for a third time for submissions. Does anybody wish to speak to this at all? Okay. We didn't have any written submissions for this one either? No. So, do we have any questions for the developer? Okay. Or staff? Do we have any questions for staff? Okay. Councillor Jameson?
It was a comment.
Okay, we'll get to the, I will, if there are no questions and no submissions, I will close the public hearing and we will go to comments then. Councillor Jameson?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to actually say thank you for that very picture. I know we discussed it at planning, and it was just another tool for my imagination that I wanted to have a look at, and it doesn't change my mind about the application at all. And it was just, I appreciate Chris and Mark working together on that and providing that picture for us. So, but I will support the application for all the reasons I said at planning, and I'm sure the other reasons the council will give tonight if they are in support.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments from council? Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, Worship, and I too will support. We've now accomplished finding solutions for 2 of our weed lots, so to speak. No, I've been waiting for something to happen here. There's been many rumors over the years. I think the mix of commercial and residential on the top floor is a very good mix, and I look forward to something being built on that lot. Yeah, I wanted a waterfront pub, but it just never happened. So I like this plan, and it looks like a very good plan, and the developer and the applicant have done a great job. So I will vote in support.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. My comments very similar. Thank you to the developers for bringing forward a proposal, no variances. We really like to see that. Thank you so much. And thank you for your creative solution to the parking issue there. So I will certainly support.
Thank you. Councillor Labrie?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. I support this as well. And I would note that I'm no longer referring to empty lots as weed spots. But it's a great proposal, and looking forward to it proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Okay, so hearing no further comments, then I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Administrator? Oh, so we're now at the public hearing portion, statutory public hearing. Okay. So for the statutory public hearings, I do have a longer statement to read. public hearing for bylaw number 4274 is convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, everyone will be allowed to make presentations to council, and all present who believe their interest in property is affected by these matters shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions. Those of you who wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaw should approach council and commence your presentation by clearly stating your name and residential address. Please state your name and address each time you start a new presentation to enable the recording secretary to accurately reflect your statements. The function of council this evening is to receive the views of the public. Council will not debate the merits of this proposal with individuals. However, council members may question presenters regarding their submissions. Everyone is encouraged to make his or her views known. Persons who wish to present written submissions may do so. Background documents related to the bylaw and written submissions that have been received by the city are available for inspection by the public and located in the binders on the table by the entry doors. All written submissions will be retained by the corporate officer for review by council and by members of the public at this hearing. To maintain order and ensure everyone a reasonable opportunity to be heard, the following rules of procedure have been established for this public hearing. Please direct all submissions to the chair. Questions will be kept to a minimum as the background information on this bylaw has been available for public review for the preceding 2 weeks. Following introduction of the bylaw by city staff, the floor will be open for presentations, commencing with the applicant, followed by other interested parties in the order that the chair recognizes them. Presentations will not be limited unless the submission is not relevant to the matter at hand. There will be 3 calls for submissions prior to the closing of this public hearing. Please accept the views of others and keep your presentations as short and concise as possible. Members of council cannot hear or receive submissions from the public after this hearing is closed. The Planning and Development Officer will now explain the proposal. Development Services.
Thanks, Your Worship. This is a zoning application to support potential future development options. The property is proposed to be rezoned from R1 to R4. This proposed zoning is aligned with the official community plan's medium-density land use designation. No development is proposed at this time. However, a future multifamily development proposal would most likely trigger a detailed development permit application similar to what we've looked at earlier today. Staff support the application.
Okay. So I will open up this public hearing, beginning with the applicant. Would the applicant like to speak? Is the applicant here? Oh, yes. Would you like to speak or? Nope, okay. So calling for a second time for submissions? Does anyone want to come forward and speak to this? Okay. Calling a third time for submissions? Okay. Seeing no submissions, do we have any questions? Questions for staff? There were no written submissions. Okay. Seeing no questions for staff, then I will close this public hearing. Administrator?
Your Worship, under reconsideration of bylaws, item 22.1 is zoning amendment bylaw 4274 for the property at 1081 First Street Southeast. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Lavery, seconded by Councillor Jamieson, that the bylaw entitled zoning amendment bylaw number 4274 be read a third and final time.
Do we have any comments from council? Councillor Harrison?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Could we just pull up Appendix 3, which is official community plan? If we can just, yeah, there we go, that's perfect. So maybe we should go a little lower, Chris, we can see the legend as well. There we go. So this property is the red circled one. In the OCP, you can see the designation all along there is medium density. And then if we can go to the zoning one, which is the next appendix. I'd just like to see the top part too, Chris, sorry. Yeah. So what's happening in this area below Shoemaker Hill is slowly the densities are increasing, and this parcel fits right in with with the other parcels that have rezoned, either to R8 or to R4. I think it's a perfect spot for this kind of density. It's within walking distance of the downtown. It's on a slight hillside there, but fairly flat. Above it, of course, is R4 development that's just finishing construction. So I think it's exactly what our official community plan asks for. So I will support it based on that.
Okay. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you. Support it for all the same reasons, and it's interesting, perhaps this is a lesson for people who want to increase densities in the future. If you say you're not going to do it for some time, apparently there isn't as much negative feedback to increasing densities, but for all the reasons mentioned and the fact that the OCP clearly says this is medium density, I will support it and look forward to seeing the increased densities in the future.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further comments from council? Hearing none, and I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Administrator,
So I have a motion to adjourn.
we just had a couple things to deal with that we
Okay.
kind of missed during the council correspondence when the Shuswap Watershed Council was on, document was on there. And one was the Shuswap Watershed Council is doing a review, a 3-year review at the request of Salmon Arm Council. And since it was at our request, they are striking a committee of 4, and they thought maybe 5 would be better, and they're asking if Salmon Arm would like to have a second person, since we had asked for this review. So Councillor Jameson has agreed to be a second person on this. So I need a motion. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Flynn. Make a motion that Councillor Jameson sit on the Shuswap Watershed Council for the review. So, anyone have any questions? Councillor Harrison?
How do you feel about that, Councillor Jameson?
Well, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, you'd support the motion? I do. All right, then I'm in.
I asked him prior. So then I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And one other late item, I'm sorry, because I will be attending the Salmon Symposium in September. And since I would like to stay overnight at the hotel, I do have money in my budget, but I do need council approval to do that. So I need a motion. If anyone would like, Councillor Wallace Richmond, I need a seconder. Second by Councillor Jameson. Anyone want any more comments on that? I think Councillor Jameson.
Speaking to the motion, I want to make sure it's for that's the gathering in late September, early October.
It would be the night of the 28th and the 29th.
That's right, and that was the salmon
Symposium.
Salmon Symposium. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be important that you're there. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, but the 20, I only went to the night of the 28th, the 30th I'll come. Sorry. Anyway, so it's the 29th and the 30th, sorry.
And your worship, is there room for other people from the city? Because I know when the presentation was given a few weeks ago, there was suggestion that staff would be invited and available if they were available.
I think if anybody wants to register, they can, but there is only limited number of seats.
Yeah, there was 180 seats, I think.
So if we want to register, then we should do so soon.
Okay.
Okay. So I do have money in my budget, so I will call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Administrator?
And I have a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Eliason, seconded by Councillor Wallace Richmond, that the regular council meeting of June 25th, 2018 be adjourned.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay.
That was good.
You know Glenn Green, right? Talking lately about